Rod went from writing, creating Twilight Zone and patterns and all the things that he created, and then he really decided that he wanted to teach, and he wanted a whole new generation to learn. And so that's why I think he came to Ithaca.
Well, he was a visiting professor, so as you could imagine, he was a big deal for the school, for all of us kids, and anybody that had any knowledge of television or any interest in television knew who Rod Serling was.
There was a lot of buzz because Rod was coming. There was just a presence in the hallway. You could feel the magnetism.
It's hard to describe when you're 19, 20 years old, meeting somebody that was so sure of himself, so experienced in what you wanted to do, such a star, and his words carried a lot of weight.
The instinct of creativity must be followed by the act, the physical act of putting it down for a sense of permanence. Once you get that prod, that emotional jar, that I have witnessed something, or I have felt something, or I have seen something, or through observation, I have been moved by an event, I think the answer is get it down quickly, write it down. Don't let it die a boarding in the head. Don't let it exist as just a simple memory. I was traumatized into writing by war events, by going through a war in a combat situation and feeling the desperate sense of the terrible need for some sort of therapy. Get it out of my gut, write it down. This is the way it began for me.
Man, how cool is that? That was a clip from the new documentary Remembering Rod Serling, which is part of the Twilight Zone 60th anniversary celebration that's being put on by Fathom Events this Thursday. You got to find your local AMC, your local Regal. They're showing not one Twilight Zone episode, not two Twilight Zone episodes. They're showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Twilight Zone episodes on top of Remembering Rod Serling documentary. Those episodes are Walking Distance, Time Enough at Last, The Invaders, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, my personal favorite Twilight Zone episode, Eye of the Beholder, and To Serve Man. Kind of shocked they're not doing Nightmare at 30,000 Feet, but I guess that's played out.
Yes.
Fathom Events, thank you so much for giving us that clip and for providing us with 5 free movie tickets for our listeners. We ran a little contest online. We have the winners. We're reaching out to you. Hopefully you already know this. But our winners are CM351 on Instagram, The Scene Mob on Instagram, Jersey Diva 82 on Instagram, Abby Munster on Instagram, and Christopher Gabbro on Twitter.
Yeah.
I know Christopher Gabbro, and
but that did not influence his winning. It was a random drawing.
It was random. You
Facebook Live did.
About it.
just saying. I just think I'm super excited that the non friends have won.
He's bitter because he entered himself like 9 times and did not win.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I know John Mayer did that, and he did not win. Sorry, John Mayer.
He's my brother.
But yeah, I'm super excited to go partake in the Twilight Zone 60th anniversary celebration. It's one of the greatest shows ever. My favorite episode is The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. That is the episode that I would teach as a screenplay to my 6th grade class when I was back at the Fairfax Collegiate School. True story.
Wow. Cool. All right.
So there you go. Let's get back to the regular business.
Here he goes.
You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those nerds! Nerds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the ITMODcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Now that's how you drive. From now on, that's how you drive.
And also joining us is Billy Das, the Indie Dork.
I go my own way.
Lisa Gullickson, wife Dork.
Ma, there's a weird fucking stray cat outside.
And Brad Gullickson, mouth Dork.
Crack an egg on it.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. There's this passage I got memorized. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon you. And welcome to another edition of the ITMODcast podcast. Yay! Happy anniversary. Happy 5th anniversary, ITMOD.
Darren, this is not another edition.
No.
This is a very specific.
Welcome to another special edition of the ITMODcast podcast.
Is it okay that he says another?
I mean, we've had other special.
We've had other specific ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've been special before.
I just want to make sure because there's some sharp objections there from Brad.
Brad's just being the contrarian with his bowl of rice.
Eating on the pod.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the 5th anniversary recording of the ITMODcast podcast. It's been 5 wonderful years.
Yes, it has.
What is your first ITMOD memory? Starting with Brian.
Oh God, put me on the spot. There we go. I don't know. Like honestly, for me, it was my first episode. It was coming. I'll never forget. It was because you guys started the podcast like November of 2014. Hence why we're doing this episode. But I remember you and Darren and Matt. Shout out to Matt Omega Dork for starting it all off. And I started listening to it. And I think towards the end of 2014, you guys did your end of the year list.
The Dorkies.
Yeah, and I think that was like my first. I remember me and Darren came from Tyson's Corner. And I remember writing my list in the car.
Yeah, you procrastinating motherfucker.
Because at that point in 2014, I never really made top 10 lists. And I was just like, dude, I don't even know if I can come up with 10 movies. And I was debating like my number 10 because I was like, should I put Equalizer or John Wick on there? And I think I ended up putting John Wick at number 10. And I was just trying to formulate a list. And I just remember that initial episode that I came on that we shot in that back room back there.
It's crazy because like 5 years later, you've come so far and you still wait till the day of to put your list together.
Only for fistfuls. I'm a little bit more stringent when it comes to like the end of the year list.
You've become quite the listman.
I have, and thanks to Brad, it's rubbed off on me. Thank you, Brad.
Rubbed off.
I rub off all the time.
Oh, all right.
But yeah, I would say that's one of many, but that's one that sticks out.
Yeah, I remember. Equalizer, John Wick. Equalizer, John Wick. How about Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows?
I know. I put Ninja Turtles. Oh no, the first one.
Was it the first one?
Yeah, 2014. I had that on there because I literally was just
2 Platinum Dunes Ninja Turtles in the 5 years of ITMOD.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And
life's good.
Yeah, not really. Not when it comes to that. Not really.
Oh, all right.
Opinions change over the course of 5 years. So
well, people grow.
That's sad.
Exactly.
Billy, your first ITMOD memory.
ITMOD memory is because I was a listener. I was a listener from day one.
Yay.
And like,
were you listener from day one?
No kidding.
Dork days?
Yeah. I remember very distinctly sitting in a parking lot because I didn't listen to podcasts very much, and you guys started doing this, and I thought, well, shit, I need to support my friends.
Yeah, it's us and Mark Maron. We invented podcasts.
Yeah, well, that's how I understood it. Yeah. So I don't know, whatever the history may be, that's how this one remembers it. But no, I was sitting in the parking lot of my biggest memory is sitting in the parking lot of the Giant, listening to you guys interview David Frugero.
Oh, The Signal.
The guy who wrote The Signal.
The guy who wrote The Signal.
1 month into In the Mouth of Darkness,
Nuts.
and we were already doing ITMOD Chatcast.
And then, yeah, right. And then I remember, too, shoveling my driveway in a snowy month, listening to you guys talk about Jupiter Ascending and thinking, I kind of like that movie.
I liked that movie. I was pro Jupiter Ascending on that.
It was a good
episode.
Position. I think it stands the test of time. Jupiter Ascending, it's all right.
All right. That was a fun episode. I remember that one.
It's a pretty good episode.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it was a great episode. Pretty good movie.
It got me through my sidewalk shoveling. So
yeah.
You're welcome.
All right. Wife Dork, your first ITMOD memory.
I think my first ITMOD memory, because I also had to sleep my way onto this podcast.
I wasn't going to share that, but
it was happening in my home.
Oh.
And so I was trying to look for a way to be supportive of my husband, but not horn in. So I was like, I'll be like the person who takes notes, and I'll do the ITMOD notes.
You were going to do the episode notes.
Yes.
The show notes.
Yes.
That lasted for 2 posts.
Because you guys talk nonsense. You don't need notes on that kind of thing. But you were talking about Anna Lily Amirpour's film, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
That's right.
And you guys were trying to get into what the film was actually about. And I was sitting there trying, just openly, only visibly disapproving. And they're finally like, what, Lisa? And then I laid down the law and I told them what that movie was about. And that was the first time I was on. And then the first time I was on a full episode. And the reason my name is Wife Dork was our first review of Comic-Con. And I came on because I am your wife. And
That's
so I was
right.
the wife
You
dork.
Still
and
are.
Darren called me wife dork for the first time on air. You had already a couple of times on Twitter. And I came on to do the Comic-Con review. And then 2 people who are Liz and Aaron, who are like, shout out, were like, Lisa should be on the podcast. And I was like, okay. And then now they can't kick me out.
It's the smartest addition you guys have made.
I mean, I don't know if our listeners have seen Darren's video that he put out on Facebook Live yesterday, right? Yeah, yesterday. Yeah. And Darren said that, like the secret ingredient of In the Mouth of Darkness is Lisa. And I am biased because I'm married to this one. But I do think your point of view separates our podcast from every other movie podcast.
Because there's a lady on it. That does make a huge difference.
I mean, yes, it does. There are other lady movie podcasts, but you saved us.
Oh, man.
No, what I'm saying is, hold on. I can save this. I can save this. You saved us from being just another broadcast.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome.
I don't know if I still like the way I came off. But it's what I said.
You know what he meant.
Go watch Darren's video. Darren said it much better than
stop.
Husband Dork really just effed up. But I'm just saying that you did, you're everything.
Thanks,
you're everything
my
to this podcast.
Oh.
Brad, your first ITMOD memory.
I need help, Darren.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the very first memory,
Okay.
right? It's not the recording that we did. It's not necessarily the first episode, and it's not even the first strategy meeting that we had. Remember, I went over to Matt's house, his apartment, to strategize with you, and I think you were on the phone when we did that meeting.
Yeah.
But even before that, which must have been in October, I want to say it was a Halloween party where the 3 of us started talking about the idea of doing a podcast, and you are the one who brought it up and saying, you and Matt should really take the blog and turn it into a podcast.
Right.
That was our Halloween party, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And so that's really my first memory. That was also the first time I went as a bedsheet ghost, and I just replicated that.
He has resurrected that ingenious costume idea.
Yeah. But I remember talking to you, and then I drove Matt home from the party. And in that car ride, Matt and I thought, well, Darren says he has a microphone. And maybe we can talk into it. And that's really my first In the Mouth of Darkness memory.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back even further, it was Matt convincing me to start up the blog spot, which, no longer exists, but for... Let's see, that was in 2011. And that was the first official Dorkies that we put together. I remember that because number 1 was Hugo. Drive Angry was on that list. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, Rango, The Artist, all made my list. Rubber made my list that year. Yeah. And I found that writing that blog with Matt was a lot of fun, but not nearly as fun as it ended up being on the podcast. Yeah. And also a lot easier, too.
Yeah. All right.
Darren, what's your first memory?
My first memory is thinking that you and Matt should consider doing. Well, actually,
why did you think that?
Because it stemmed from thinking about our conversations between myself, Brian, Paul, you, and Matt, just about when we talked about movies in general, or just when we talked about our geek stuff in general, and how fun that is, and thinking back on as taking my contributions to any one of those conversations out of the equation and being a listener to what Brian was saying to you, what you were saying to Matt, what Matt was saying to me, and thinking, man, that it was fun. It's always fun to listen to you guys and your opinion and feel like, well, I'm amongst people who share a similar interest to me and share similar passions to me. So I think it'd be fun to listen to Matt and Brad talk about basically the stuff that because at that point I was aware of the In the Mouth of Darkness, the webpage, the blog spot, and reading that and just hearing you say the words that I was reading, and just hearing Matt discuss with you the things that he was reviewing about the books and the different reviews that he was putting on the blog spot. So I figured, like, and at that point I had just gotten into figuring out or just discovering what a podcast was, right? I'd heard the term like incessantly for a while, but I had never really looked into it or understood what it was. But then once I started doing some research, I came to understand what that format, that platform is. And then I just thought, well, I would love to hear, because I love your writing. I love the way that you and both Matt speak when you write. And so I thought I would love to hear that audibly.
And then you heard it audibly, and you're like, "These guys are better writers."
No, man, no. Because absolutely not. Because what had happened was, and as I said in that video last night, initially as I presented it to you and Matt, I was just going to be doing this. I was just going to be behind the scenes on the boards, letting you two discuss whatever topic you were going to put on the website, the web page, and I was going to just be a fly on the wall and get to witness that discussion and enjoy. That was the selfish part component for me. Like, I was going to get to watch you guys talk about and nerd out over shit, because to me it was always intimidating about, I mean, as far as like your knowledge, your geek knowledge, your nerd knowledge, the knowledge of your science fiction, the comic books, the movies, especially, you know, Matt in particular, but you when it comes to movies, and I had proposed that you do that, and you said, well, if we do this, you have to be on it as well. So it being better, or me hearing you talk about it and then feeling like you're better writers, no, absolutely not, because you allowed me to be involved in that discussion. So that ultimately took it to a different level of enjoyment, because now I was able to contribute and also learn from you and Matt. You know, those early episodes of the homework, and, you know, the homework cast, and you assigning me movies and Matt assigning me movies that I never would have watched. And so learning from
Keoma,
yeah.
I watched Keoma because of that.
You're welcome.
But yeah, that's my first ITMOD memory is just the germination of this, thinking about that idea of, man, I would love to hear Brad and Matt speak about these things that I'm also into.
Well, I cannot possibly imagine what my life would be like without you suggesting In the Mouth of Darkness podcast. Because so much of what Lisa and I do now revolves around this show. Yeah. And it is, for all of us, a labor of love. And we haven't even considered doing Patreon or ad space, and we probably should. But man, that takes a lot of effort and brain space, and I don't want to.
But also, such a big part of this podcast is getting to get to be together and hang out with our friends.
Yeah. Well, what I love about it is it forces Darren and Brian to come over every week and hang out. And like, that's great. Okay, so we're recording this live on Facebook as well, and we are getting comments as we're chatting.
What are they saying? What are they saying?
And I want to just like chime in with a couple comments from Danielle, who is Billy's wife.
Oh no,
is it about sausage?
No, it's not about sausage.
Okay.
She actually says that Claire wants Billy to know that tell the indie dork that this is awesome. So Claire's enjoying
Shout out to Claire.
Shout out
Oh,
to
yeah.
Claire.
You're enjoying it, Claire.
I hope everybody who is listening right now listens to Bill and Claire's excellent adventure. I'm Team Claire. If you have to choose between Billy and Claire, I'm a huge fan of Claire, and I love getting that fresh insight into these classic films.
Absolutely, but
Team Claire.
Harper doesn't want to be left out because she objects that my daddy is not a dork, and she objects to the idea of Billy Dass being referred to as a dork of any kind, indie or otherwise.
I don't. Harper, is she of understanding that dork is there's not a negative connotation? It's a cool thing to be a dork.
I think she's not yet been brought to awareness that dork doesn't have to be a mean thing, but it doesn't have to be a mean thing, and it's not. It's a
But don't take it to school and start pointing at other kiddos and calling them dorks, because this teacher might approve.
Dorks is the way I think that all of us talk about ourselves, in the sense that, like, we know that we love something very specifically and we love it deeply, and that's the way that
we have a deep love and base knowledge and no marketable skills, so that makes us a dork.
Well,
minus the base knowledge for me, but I'm with you.
Well, here in the Dork Cave, Harper, we take that word and we own it and we cherish it, and we take that word to mean someone who is unafraid to live unabashedly their love for any particular passion, and also be willing to share that love and also accept others who are open about their loves and passions. So here on the ITMODcast podcast, it is a very, very, very cool honor and privilege to be called and labeled and accepted as a dork. So just consider that.
For sure, that is accurate.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to lie. The reason Matt and I called it In the Mouth of Dorkness is we thought it was also funny because dork means penis.
Well,
as a dork, I approve on both.
And to this day on Twitter, I'll have people responding to article posts or episode posts going, mouth dork? What is this guy's deal? I love dorks. I like him in my mouth. And I'm a big John Carpenter fan as well. In the Mouth of Madness, In the Mouth of Dorkness. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I like everywhere you took that.
Yes. Shara is also a big fan of Claire as well. She wants us all to know that. And she wants to know that, Darren, you are so eloquent. I couldn't put it any better way myself. I wear the dork badge proudly.
Yeah.
Shout out to Shara. Thank you.
The Stitch Dork, Shara.
Yeah.
Go check out her Etsy page.
Yeah, we have some of her artwork right by your shoulder. Put it into the microphone, into the camera. That's why I'm not the tech dork.
It's amazing.
Get that Bamf out of my fridge. So at this point, I thought maybe we could talk about our favorite In the Mouth of Dorkness memories.
Ooh.
And again, Brian gets put on the spot
all the time.
Do you
this
have
seat is the hot seat?
Do you have first memory that pops up when you go like, what's my favorite In the Mouth of Dorkness memory? First memory, go.
I have a few.
Okay, I'll take a few.
I have a few that really kind of stand out. It's reviews that didn't go the way that I thought they would go.
Oh man,
there's a few. King Arthur. Is
yes.
Still one of my great shaves.
I was just like, man, it's just like I'm just left with like the O face. Like, oh, okay. I thought that was gonna go a different way. Okay.
You thought it was gonna be the other O face.
You just knew we were gonna love it.
I was like, man, I walked out the theater. I was like, oh man, I can't wait till Sunday. And I guess I was the only person that thought that.
If you go back and listen to our King Arthur Legend of the Sword interview.
Sword?
Yeah, Sword.
Okay, Sean Connery.
It's an ITMOD joke, Billy. Is it? I don't know if that's true. If you go back and listen to that episode, Lisa, Darren, and Brad are so checked out. I hate that episode. I hate listening to it because Brian is so clearly disappointed, and the three of us give nothing of ourselves to that review. And I wish I could do that whole episode over again. I honestly do.
Yeah.
Now, we did do that ITMOD Chatcast interview with Max Winkler, the director of Jungleland, which is the new Charlie Hunnam film.
Yeah.
And he's in your camp.
Thank
He
you.
loves King Arthur Legend of the Sword.
King Arthur was fun.
Yeah, that was before Billy. So Billy's a big.
I needed Billy then. I needed you, man. I needed you.
I enjoyed that movie. It's not my favorite Guy Ritchie, but it's
all right. So that was one.
The other one that stands out, and you said favorite, but these are, looking back on it, I do think of them fondly. But the other one was the Furious 7 review. And because I went ahead and did that big old fast fest where I had everybody come over and watch all the movies.
That shit was tight, man.
No, that was good. But I'm just saying, like, the excitement leading up to Furious 7 and then watching that movie and coming out a bit disappointed and figuring out, like, going into that review, I was
what am I going to say?
Oh, man. And then, like, I just remember, like, Matt was just... like, I remember you were talking about it in the theater because I think we all saw it together at Tyson's Corner. And, like, you were getting emotional, like, towards the end of the movie. I know Matt was, like, kind of ruining that moment because he was laughing. And you kept saying, like, shut up, man. Like, this is the, you know, and he was just, like, you know, getting, and I don't know. And something about, I just remember that review fondly going back and how disappointed I know I was going into that, but good times. And then how it was a bit of fun banter with the Independence Day resurgence.
I don't even remember. I don't know what you're talking about.
Because I remember seeing that movie and I was like, oh man,
you loathed that movie.
I did. I loathed that movie and I was ready to attack.
I kind of dug it. Remember, I think I dug it.
All you guys dug it. I was like, this is like the opposite.
No, did I like it?
Yeah, man, you guys were fighting me on every point I was making. I was like, man, I'm about to rip this movie apart. And you was like, nah, man, nah. Like, you gotta look at it from this way. No, it's good. I'm like, are you serious? Like,
Brian, Roland Emmerich recently said he should never have made that movie without Will Smith.
Yeah.
And he's fucking right.
Exactly. Thank you. I needed you there, Billy.
Brian, I don't remember that review. I don't remember that movie.
Oh, man.
I apologize for that and our review of King Arthur Legend of the Sword.
Yeah, but those are ones that stick out. Those 3 reviews stick out to me in a very fond way, and I always remember those.
All right, what about you, Billy?
ITMOD memory would be going out to the Winchester when Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead were here in town. And you guys had an interview behind the scenes with them in the projection booth.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that's because I got to go along as a fly on the wall in that particular one. And, you know, like, that means a lot to me, obviously, because the Chatcast is a big deal to me. And the inclusion in this podcast is a big deal to me. And that, like, felt like a little bit of a turning point there for my involvement in what was going on.
Yeah.
But I also fucking love those guys. And
that was super cool. They were
super
cool that time, man. I remember that.
Like, I that's the first time that I was ever in the projection booth in the Winchester Alamo, and I never get over how special that little hallway full of old, terrible movie posters is. Yeah. It is a magical place, and to be there kind of like at that first memory with Justin and Aaron and watching you guys have an interview live and be able to participate in that, and then knowing what that would grow into from there, I mean, it doesn't get better than that for me.
Yeah. That was super fun. Wife Dork.
Yes.
Your favorite?
My favorite is the interview we did with Karin Kusama.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
That was a really fun interview.
Yeah.
It really solidified my approach of doing way too much research. And that mode of high stress, lots of paper shuffling has been successful ever since. And that was a great interview with Billy, so it was super fun. Also, it's hard to go like individual like review casts and fistfuls because in my head, like it's just a beautiful infinite loop of material. But recently, I thought our Parasite review cast was great. That was a really good one. Our Fistful of Candy. Epic. It still goes down.
Shara chimed in on Facebook, and she is saying fistful of candy. I go back and listen to that episode anytime I'm having a bad day, and it never fails me.
Brad will never live down trying to argue that Jell-O is candy.
Oh my God.
Jell-O is candy, guys.
What an embarrassment.
Another magical ITMOD memory was getting to host Anna in the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Oh, when we were all zombied out.
And zombied out. That was a no, Brian.
yeah.
That was very sad. But I got to sing a number, and
great.
You guys dressed up in zombie makeup, and we got to introduce a movie that I love.
Yeah.
The going to Fantastic Fest. That batch of interviews, they're still rolling out, but that's the first time I've been ITMOD press.
We have 8 Fantastic Fest interviews still coming down the pike.
Yes. So crazy.
You should come to Fantastic Fest, Billy.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
You've got to. And then our very first Still Awesome, which was Men in Black.
Oh, yeah.
That was hosted by Billy, and he wore his suit.
I did.
And then I wore an alien
She did.
mask,
Yeah.
and I got shot by Billy.
I think that photo that we have of you creeping over the back of me in the suit, I think that may even outrank the zombification makeup photo that we did for Anna in the Apocalypse.
Yeah. Profile photo for life. So those are some of mine. They're special.
B.
5 years. There are way too many favorite memories. It is hard to pin them down to 3, but I'm gonna do it.
I pinned it down to 5.
You did pin it down to 5. Maybe I'll do 5. But the first one that popped into my mind is when Darren and I did the first drive to the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, Virginia for Lost Weekend 3.
Man.
And you know, we the first time I heard about Lost Weekend was when Keith Shiflett posted it on Facebook, and I think it was Lost Weekend 2, and they watched 16 movies. No, I think it was 11 movies.
Yeah, it would have been less,
because 16 was ours.
Yeah,
it was like 11 movies in one weekend. I was like, you know, I know the Winchester is like an hour drive. But maybe watching 6 movies would be worth it. Yeah. And I hear this Lost Weekend 3 is going to have even more movies. And then Darren and I said, yeah, let's go get a room and we'll spend the weekend in Winchester. But that was also in early March, and a blizzard was coming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And Darren and I were like, we are not going to drive through the Shenandoah Mountains in a blizzard. So we got to go a day early. Yeah. And Darren and I met up at the Country Inn and Suites in Winchester, right next door to the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester. We spent a weekend together in the same room. And that first night, boy, did that snow come down.
Yeah.
And Darren and I, that first night, because no festival had started yet, we watched Fault in Our Stars together. And oh gosh, what was that McCain?
It's something game.
Game Change.
The one with
Ed Harris and Julianne Moore. Yeah, Sarah Palin.
Yeah.
And we watched that together.
Oh, remember we also that was the night that Age of Ultron tickets came out.
Yes, and we got those Age of Ultron tickets from our hotel room.
We were so excited. Yeah,
super excited for that. And then we went to Lost Weekend 3, and we met Andy Geierson, which definitely changed the course of the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, Virginia.
Yep.
And like that was paradise. Lost Weekend 3 was movie paradise. And then Andy's like, well, you got to come back for the Lost Weekend 4, and maybe you guys should sponsor. And we're like, yes, we're cool. We're like McDonald's. We can sponsor things.
Yeah.
And we have sponsored Lost Weekend ever since Lost Weekend 4. I have seen so many amazing movies at the Winchester. We not only now host a film series at the Winchester, Still Awesome. District 9 tickets are on sale right now, as are our December tickets for Eyes Wide Shut. Like, talk about a really rad film program, guys. There's no denying how great our tastes are.
Yeah.
But even before that, Andy suggested that In the Mouth of Darkness host a month of movies, and we all got to pick one of our favorites.
Oh, yes. I changed mine. Forget all of the memories that involve you guys. My favorite ITMOD memory was hosting Head.
Yeah, Lisa hosts Head at the Winchester. Brian hosts The Gray. Darren hosted Kung Fu Hustle, and I hosted Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
And that was nuts.
I loved recording with all of you guys in the hotel room after the Gray, because we were all feeling so deep because we had all cried so much and held hands together in the theater.
Yeah, that was good.
And that episode gets real. And if you want to know Brian Young, watch that movie.
Oh my gosh,
listen to that app.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. You dig right into the soul of Brian Young in that episode. But then going back to that episode with David Fergario in The Signal, the first time, we were just talking online, and then he saw that we were writing about The Signal because you were a big fan of The Signal, and he's like, I'll come on your podcast. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
The guy who wrote The Signal is going to come on our podcast? And then he did.
Yeah.
And then that went to Eduardo Sanchez, again at the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, Virginia, and talking the Blair Witch Project with Eduardo Sanchez. And then that became a reoccurring thing to the point where we've now launched the ITMODcast channel, and we have put out an interview with a filmmaker every week, except for one, but we've made up for it with bonus episodes.
Oh, by far.
Every week since the end of February, when Lisa and I went to the Sundance Film Festival as In the Mouth of Darkness.
Oh, yeah, that was the first time
that
I
was your
at
first
Mod
press,
Press.
Lisa. Yeah. And we have had so many awesome conversations at Fantastic Fest. Billy and I driving to the Chattanooga Film Festival, which is a paradise unto itself.
Friends for life there.
Friends for life there. And then going to the Overlook Film Festival. Yeah. And we've had amazing conversations.
With Friends for Life from the Chattanooga Film Festival.
Yes. Shout out to Bex. So, like, it's crazy when you go back to that first episode and we're all huddled around that tiny little microphone in the office. Talking about MST3K and their Thanksgiving marathon. And then I'm in a room with Lisa talking to Takashi Miike.
Bong Joon-ho.
Bong Joon-ho. I mean, Bong Joon-ho's, he's a master, and that is no big deal. It's a huge fucking deal. And that's nuts, and he has made my favorite movie of the year. But Takashi Miike...
That's different.
That's like... I've been obsessed with Takashi Miike since I was 18. Or no. When did audition? 1999. So I saw it probably 2001. Since I was like 21.
Yeah.
And to be in a room trying to be cool and getting Takashi Miike to love me. Very challenging and surreal.
While your wife is having a cough attack and trying to, like, contain it.
But then, like, Billy and I in New Orleans talking to Mick Garris about Critters 2.
That's wild.
That Mick Garris Critters 2, your parents' reaction to Critters 2 conversation, that memory isn't even fucking mine, and it's one of my favorite things that we've ever talked about.
So I am so thankful to all of you for going on this ride and for, making my life a geek paradise. Mm-hmm. And it's the most important thing in my life after just Lisa. And Lisa's a part of it.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I made it weird again at the end. But,
you are our second marriage.
You are.
We will also not have children with you.
You guys are our second marriage. You're our Michael Douglas.
Our film love is our most beautiful baby.
MK wants us to remember not to forget about our gray screening with our wolf shirts.
Oh, yes. That was great. I wear that wolf shirt regularly. The night before last, I wore it to bed.
I have never worn those wolf leggings again.
No. I don't know where my wolf shirt is.
Yeah,
but that is our Facebook banner photo, and it's amazing. But we need to update that thing because that banner photo is old. And doesn't have Billy in it.
The wolf photo is pretty dope, though.
Yeah, it is pretty dope. Yeah. It's pretty dope.
If
Lisa
you
Bell
look closely, I have a little tummy pooch in it.
Oh, no. Don't look closely. Don't look closely. Lisa Bell Roden put that banner together for us. So
she's the best.
Shout out to her as well. Now, Darren, that brings us to you. Your one memory. I had like 7. You get 1.
My one...
No, you can do 7, too.
I'm not going to do 7. I will say... I'll do like maybe 3. The first one I would say that sticks out to me the most was it stems from Lost Weekend in Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester and an experience there. But watching the documentary Finders Keepers, and then discovering who the late Shannon Wisnett, who he was, and then
wild.
Eventually speaking to him and having him on the podcast. Just insane. Like it's
I think that's a great word for it.
Yeah. But initially just watching that documentary, I think back to sitting in the theater watching that, just being blown away by the subject matter and the people and just the context and just the psychology on display there and what's going on, and not having any idea that we would have an opportunity to actually sit down and get an inside glimpse and actually speak to this person, because watching the documentary you can form your own opinions, and any documentary can be constructed in a way to make you feel a particular opinion about something, whereas you actually get an inside look into the subject matter, or speaking to someone, it could maybe alter your perception or make you think a little bit deeper about it. And so on the one hand, you look at that documentary and you laugh at Shannon Wisnett and the ridiculousness of the situation and what's going on. And then you speak to him on the phone and you see that, well, it's firstly doesn't seem like it's necessarily an act, but also while his larger than life personality is true to him, there's still a human being there, right, behind all of that. So at the very least for me, it would make me go back and reevaluate, my initial impression and my snickering, and actually just consider the psychology and the life of someone who would become who he was. And then, having that time that however long we spoke to him, because not too long after that, he would pass away.
Do you know what's wild is that before he passed away, he received an ITMOD mug.
Yeah.
One of the first ITMOD mugs.
Yeah. That he said he was going to put in his museum.
Yeah.
About himself.
He was 1,000% genuine.
Yeah.
1,000% genuine. And after the podcast, he maintained relationships with Darren and Brad for a while.
Yeah. And so, people, I've read reviews about that documentary and seen comments and understandably people can look at that and laugh and find amusement and mock that. But having spoken to him and outside of that interview, but on a one-on-one basis and getting to know just a tiny fraction more about him and the human being behind that outlandishness of that circumstance, it really opened my eyes to him and really grounds that small relationship that I had with him. And it really saddened me to find out of his passing.
But he was like a wild, rare, uncontainable genius.
He lived in that short amount, because he passed away young. But he lived a very, like, his life story, book or movie or whatever would be nuts. Be nuts.
A lot of it's documented.
Right.
He wrote a lot of that down, and hopefully it gets published somewhere.
Yeah. So I'm very fortunate to the podcast. That's one of my earlier memories. Another one of my earlier memories, like you, Brad, is that initial trek out to Winchester for Lost Weekend 3, and just being able to, I love when we go to just regular screenings, whether it be locally for big movies or just smaller movies, both you and I, and we share the experience of watching that movie, and at the end when the credits roll, we can look over at each other and go, dude, and then talk about that. But at Lost Weekend 3, we were able to do that in, just back to back to back to back to back, and like I always cherish that. I want to say but my fondest memory of ITMOD is the initial time that this happened, but every time this happens was after we recorded the very first episode, and I had not done any type of audio editing before. And it was a very crude recording at that. But listening to and editing that episode, I actually had to listen to that, go back and listen to everything to, adjust audio levels and things like that and sound quality. which at that time, if you go back and listen to it, it doesn't sound like I adjusted shit. It sounds like I just listened to it and then hit upload. But listening to that episode and in doing that, what I mentioned earlier about my idea of I'm going to present this to Brad and Matt and then have them talk and I can just stand back and listen and while I do the boards or whatever and be a fly on the wall. My guesstimation of what that experience would be like, I actually had that and to this day continue to have that fulfilled when I was editing the episode. I got to sit back and listen to you all and also myself talk. Like, so that enjoyment that I was seeking when I initially presented that to you, man, it'd be fun for me to listen to them talk. Like I got that enjoyment out of that first time editing that very first episode. And I always say that, and it speaks directly to, and it correlates directly to why starting that podcast when we did on that day was so important to my life, because, and it's no secret, I've shared this before on the podcast, and because it saved my life, I will never stop being grateful for it and talking about it. But that day, that same day that we recorded that first episode was the day that my ex-wife told me like she didn't want to be with me anymore and she was leaving. And so I get that news and then I get in the car and I drive to your house to record. And you know, yes, we record, but life still goes on. I still have to process and then deal with the fallout of, you know, this impending divorce. But having that episode and having the podcast now and having to process this audio and get it uploaded and start a website and hosting and figure all this stuff out, it gave me something to do and something to put my energies, my creative energies into, to lift me out of a place where I otherwise would have sank into a crippling depression, and I would have just been left to, you know, my own devices. And I shudder to think where my life could have been had I not had the podcast to occupy me and give me a purpose, a sense of purpose. But editing that specific night, editing that and listening and laughing and having fun listening to it and seeing the fun that we were having, I remember that it gave me a sense of joy and it gave me a sense of hope that, holy shit, if we do this again, this is something that I'm going to get to do frequently. So I'm going to get to feel the way I'm feeling right now frequently at this lowest moment in my life. And so that it literally saved me. And so I will never forget that. And every time I go back and listen to the episodes when I'm recording them, it's like the first time. I laugh so much. I laugh so the Spectre episode when we were all seeing the writings on the wall.
Oh God, yeah, that's a great.
That's just freaking hilarious. The Big Dick Richie episode, the Candy episode. Like as I go back to edit those episodes, I'm listening to that and I get to step back, because when we're recording, I have to be in the moment and be mindful of what you're saying so that I can respond, but also pay attention to the audio levels and make adjustments in real time. So I'm not necessarily able to give myself completely and 100% to the experience and what's going on, the camaraderie, the back and forth. But once all that's done and I'm editing and I'm just listening, I can take a step back and enjoy the friendship and, you know, our chemistry together for what it is. And a lot of times, like, there's shit Lisa will say that I'll miss and then I'll catch it. And that's what I meant last night when I say, like, just your wit. Like, you'll say stuff and sometimes it'll just go over my head and I'll listen to it in retrospect, in hindsight, or when I'm editing, I go, that shit was fucking brilliant. Or Brad, like, you'll say stuff and, you know, Lisa will say something and then you'll make a comment, but we're laughing or she's still talking and Brian's saying something and I'll miss it, but I'll hear it. And that shit will make me laugh. But then just Brian, when he's speaking and I listen to him, I can always see his face. like if Brad's giving him shit, or if Lisa says something that like is ribbing on Brian, or if I do it, like I can always see like Brian's face, and it makes me laugh because it just reminds me of who Brian is, and I don't know, it's so endearing. And so my fondest memory is the feeling that I get every time I go back and I listen to us when I'm editing. But it all stems from that first episode. So yeah.
Yeah, that Spectre episode was. I love that. I love how that was a lightning in a bottle episode. That we didn't try to do that every time. Like it was only specific. That singing was only specific to that song and that one episode, and we didn't try to keep going with it because we could have ran the joke out. But
on that episode,
but it was still great though.
But you know that episode I think is so indicative of, especially when you look at. From all of us, like when Lisa first started, when myself and Brad and Brian, when you first started, like our level of comfort, not just speaking into the mic or whatever, but also our level of comfort with each other, that we are so familiar and we have such a friendship and a chemistry that we can just be our goofiest self.
Sure.
And feel accepted. And
it's not like every week we are all in the same place, right? There have been episodes where we've had to like have serious conversations afterwards.
Because Lisa's out hurting people's feelings with her edgy wit.
and like because we're all very sensitive human beings, and it has taken us a long time through these conversations, through these reviews, through these fistfuls, to figure out that like, hey, if Brian loves a movie and I hate that movie, because I hate that movie doesn't mean I hate Brian or I think Brian is stupid or and vice versa.
Yeah.
And you know, we've had to have those conversations which haven't been on air. But I feel like we are so much stronger as a result of that, not just as like critics and movie fans, but as friends and family.
And that's really shaped our attitude on the podcast. It's like we're celebratory first.
Well, Lisa and I were talking about this today because we were talking about the whole Scorsese versus Marvel
how
Studios
fandom
thing.
is becoming how the term fan is becoming a bad word, like has a negative connotation to be enthusiastic about something.
And I'm like where I am right now, I am about advocacy. And like when I see a movie I love, I really want to champion that movie.
Yeah.
And when I see something that I just straight up don't like, I'm going to try not to talk about it. Now, that's not to say we're not going to do review casts where we see movies and we're going to say like,
oh yeah,
here's the good, here's the bad, and I just did not like this movie. Okay. But we do that. But where I am right now, I want to champion. I want to celebrate. I want to be positive. And so I don't know. I don't know where else I go with that.
No, but I agree because that's something when we were talking about doing this 5-year kind of retrospective, you know, going off to Matthew Modine. But I was thinking about that too. How it's really like those hard times that we've had has really kind of like solidified. Not just the podcast, but our friendships together. Like, you know, like you say, the whole Halloween thing that we had. And then even when the thing with Billy, like, you know, trying to figure out his place within the ITMOD family.
Oh, shit, we're getting real.
No, but seriously, like, when we have to have, like, those off-air, you know, those conversations where we got on Skype and we had to hash things out and just trying to figure out, okay, where do we all stand? And like I said, like, you know, people may listen to it and think that, oh, everything is rosy, but we've had to like really work at getting to a place where I feel like now we're at a place now where
there's love, there's drama.
Exactly.
I in all seriousness though, and this takes that conversation and ties it back to what you were talking about, Darren, about how the podcast is helpful to you. I genuinely, I am not a sharer. By nature, I don't share things that are going on with me. I keep things all close to the vest, and that's just part of my anxieties. I don't like to share stuff. I can't share stuff like that. And watching you specifically, Darren, talk about the things that are troubling you and the way that you incorporate that into the choices that you make in your day-to-day life, and the way that you incorporate that into how you manage your interaction with the podcast has been behavior for me that I can model my own choices after as I work to get those things that are inside of my head out into the open and make choices that allow me to expand my passions and not do it in a way that just isolates me and myself. Because, you know, my experience with film fandom is that it's an isolating experience. I watch a lot of movies just sitting out on my deck on my own. And without watching you talk about the things that are going on in your life and the way that that intersects with your film fandom and how you bring all of those things together into your passions and then the choices that you choose to make, watching all of you guys grow this podcast out of nothing. I was being genuine the other night when I said, you know, on a comment on your Facebook feed, you know, Bill and Claire's wouldn't exist if it wasn't for watching you guys grow this podcast. And my ability to talk about all of these things, and my ability to talk to my friends about the things that bother me, wouldn't be the way that it is without this group of people and all the things that we have talked about together. And I'm extremely grateful to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think it's super important because going back to what Lisa was talking about with the negative connotation with the word fan and toxic fandom and where we are in a society right now, you know, I think it's important to set the example, whether it's something people get from us on a conscious level or subconsciously, and whether they see or don't see how we work through our differences. You know, I think at the very least, you know, if not all of society, but, you know, fandom and the geek culture and things of that nature would do well to, you know, if there's a difference of opinion, you are considerate of another person's experience. You're willing to listen. You know, we've done that on the podcast. If you feel a certain way, as difficult as it may be emotionally, you allow yourself a vulnerability to put that out there so someone can get a better understanding, but also the responsibility of the other person to be understanding and accepting of someone's different life experiences, someone's difference of opinion, someone's different beliefs, and say that it does differ from mine. I do agree now, and I see what you were saying, or I don't necessarily agree, but at the end of the day, I still accept you. More importantly, I respect you as a fellow human being. Yeah. And in that, we still can and will continue to maintain a commonality. And if society would just do that in general, if geek culture would just do that in general, we would be in such a better place. There would be no negative connotation with fan or fandom.
Here's my suggestion on that, and we all know this already, but log off a little bit. You know, I love getting online. I spend most of my day on Twitter talking to people, and actually really maybe not talking to people, just shouting into the void. I love Twitter. I love it more than most people. But log off and go to Comic-Con. Not necessarily San Diego. Go to AwesomeCon. Go to Baltimore Comic-Con. Go to Lost Weekend. Go to the places where the fans are and have face-to-face conversations about the movies you love, or have a conversation about King Arthur. You love King Arthur? Let's talk about it. I want to know why you love King Arthur. Huh, interesting. I still think you're wrong, but that's interesting. Face-to-face time is so crucial in film conversation, in comic conversation, in geek conversation.
In any conversation.
In any conversation. Yeah. And when you go to Comic-Con and you're in a room with, whether it's like 30 people wanting to celebrate Rick Baker or 8,000 people wanting to celebrate Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, or even if it's just 2,000 out of the 8,000 people, like seeing people's passion and it is infectious. You know, what was that? We went and saw, what was that cartoon? Steven Universe.
Yes.
Like, I knew nothing about Steven Universe, and I came away with that loving everybody in that Steven Universe panel, right?
Did we watch Steven Universe? No, we did not.
No, it's not my thing. But also, when we go to these places and we talk to people face to face, I don't have bad experiences, and I don't meet jerks. I meet jerks online. I don't really meet jerks in person at these conventions. At these conventions, at these film festivals, for the most part, they're all positive interactions.
Yeah. And it's not to say that you won't have, you won't meet or discuss, have a conversation with a jerk, but at the very least, you had a conversation, and you don't know in what way that conversation, whether it happens during that conversation or when that person goes off on their own and they think back on their exchange with you, how they may see a commonality in just your humanity, like what you share. Like my favorite thing about us actually talking to one another on this podcast is there'll be episodes where Lisa will become extremely emotional about something, right? And it'll be maybe in relation to, you know, it will stem from a discussion about a movie, but it will tie into something personal to her and her life experience. So when I personally, when I look at those conversations and when I, in the midst of them, when we're having them and what I think back on them and what I take away from them is that, you know, we were talking about a movie, but through the power of cinema and just through the power of being a human being, like there's so many more profound things that can be extrapolated from something that can just seem so mundane as just a leisurely thing as a movie. And in that, I'm able to consider Lisa in a different light, or consider, okay, yeah, I don't agree with her opinion on this movie, but I'm learning so much about who she is as a person, what her feelings are, and just having empathy and just connecting with her. So while I might not agree with you on your stance on a particular movie, I do agree with you and connect with you on a level of feeling an emotional pain and enduring that pain and overcoming that pain. And to me, when it's all said and done, when we're not recording, if we're never speaking of ITMOD again, or if we're not behind this boards, I still have some type of personal and emotional connection to you, to Brad, to Brian. Like Brian and I, our friendship is as strong as it is because of the things that we've spoken about and gone through, because he opens up to me about his personal life and his vulnerabilities and has allowed me in. And again, just that open connection. Brian not, you know, communicating with me through Twitter or Facebook message, but literally either calling me or having a face-to-face conversation, allowing me to see his humanity, his pain, his tears, his love, his joys, to the point now where, yeah, I don't give a shit about Bad Boys 3. Right?
How dare you?
Exactly.
Oh man.
But
my heart.
But I will say, I'm as much as Brian wants that movie to be good, I want it to be good just as much, if not more, only because I genuinely care about Brian and care about his experience with watching that film.
How many movies have we watched so we could watch Brian watch a movie?
Right. But that says something about your level of empathy and your connection to him to even care about what he thinks about something that you don't care about.
Right.
True.
And again, in our social setting, in our geek community, we need more of that. We need more of, let me consider someone else's feelings about this thing that I might not necessarily feel as passionate about. Let me be that caring and open. Like, humanity can only benefit from that.
I've gotten to a place where I really am only interested in the passion that people are bringing. Like, I don't care what I know about what they're passionate about, but like when I see genuine passion, it doesn't matter what the subject is to me. I want to know more about what people are passionate about.
Yeah.
I wish I knew what movie Darren was talking about that we disagreed on, because I'm ready to rip him a new asshole. Just kidding.
But not.
But not.
But, you know, in a nutshell, to me, that's the greatest takeaway of this podcast. Yes, we've sat down and we've sat next to, across from Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, Eduardo Sanchez, freaking Matthew Modine, Maddie Doe. That interview talking about that was freaking nuts. That's one of my favorites. She's so fun, right? That was so fun. Karen Kusama, but like outside of all that, that's super cool. Like this plaque, you know, that's one of my favorite memories. Being designated the official podcast of the Alamo Draft House Winchester. But beyond that, because if we lose that plaque, if I lose the file of that interview with any one of those people, I still have the connections and the friendships. More importantly to me are the memories where we've put our hearts out on this table, whether it be before I press record or after I press record. Like, those are the things like I cherish the most, because at the end of the day, you know me a little bit better and I know you a little bit better. And you didn't have to continually let me into your home and your lives every weekend. But the fact that you do, I am forever indebted to you for that. So I'm so grateful.
Yay. We have a few comments here. I want to give a little more time to the handful of people that are in the Facebook Live to add any more questions or comments before we get out of here. But how about, like, what are we excited about as we enter into year 6 of In the Mouth of Dorkness? Brian, hot seat.
I know, the hot seat. Well, to kind of go into that, I also want to just kind of, you know, finish up a little bit about as far as what I appreciate. To you, Brad, I want to say this past Fantastic Fest, being able to be on the red carpet and get those interviews.
That was wild.
That was crazy and a great opportunity. I mean, the stuff that we were able to get with Taika Waititi and Ryan Johnson. And hopefully we'll be able to get more of that. That was just, I mean, just getting that was, like, for me, was just like, just jaw dropping. I could not believe. I was like, oh my God, I'm actually doing red carpet interviews. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for helping out.
Yeah, and the YouTube channel. Starting that, doing my first reaction to the Power Rangers trailer, and that kind of kicked off everything. Yeah, that kind of and that that's another memory too. That review.
I give Brian's love of that movie 5 stars.
There you go. Thank you, Lisa. But the YouTube channel, and then seeing how we have created this network where you guys are doing the CBCC podcast, and we have Bill and Claire, and I know me and Darren have been talking about Disco Turtle Unfiltered, that we're going to get off the ground, but I want to bring a video component to that as well, and I'm thinking about doing a solo podcast myself. So I like how we've just been building out and building a network and doing it on our own and
our shared universe.
Yeah, and I mean, and the stuff that I'm looking to do with Mandalorian with Darren to start doing
that starts
more.
Tuesday.
Yeah, just
the future is bright.
Oh my
God.
I
just
remembered.
Just trying to build out the video aspect of it as well, and to try to get more video time, not just with me and what I've been doing on the YouTube channel, but trying to get us all involved in doing that, and maybe trying to get the podcast in video form at some point as well. But,
as a person who's being live streamed right now, not a huge fan of myself on video.
But I can be a cameraman. Okay. I'll be your cameraman.
Gullicksons.
There you
behind
go.
the scenes.
There you go. But that is something too that I'm looking into doing as well, is trying to do more streaming. I'm been doing some research on streaming as well. I mean, not really Facebook streaming, but just actual like streaming, whether it's to YouTube and
Twitter and all.
And doing some of the podcasts and shows in the streaming platform, because streaming is really the thing that's really kind of like taking off, and I feel like I'm a little bit behind the curve when it comes to the technology of streaming, and because everybody is doing it. So that's something else that I'm looking, as far as like in my little corner of what I can add to the ITMOD network, ITMOD legacy, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, I think we could. The future's bright. Future's bright.
Billy.
The idea that ITMOD has reached 5 years and you can say the word legacy, and everybody's like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. What are you gonna add to the puzzle? Like, I mean, but that's my perspective. I don't know, man. This last year, going on a world tour with Brad to film festivals and just the experiences that we've had, even going to Lost Weekend and being able to interact with people who love movies and all that sort of stuff. The idea that the sky is the limit for that. The idea that, like you said, Brad, in 40-something weeks, we've missed 1 week, but we've had multiple bonus episode weeks. We really have not had a problem filling slots in this podcast.
We're at episode 46 now. And we started at the end of February.
The idea that, like, to me, that I look back at that, and that seemed like the impossible dream a year ago or 2 years ago, really. And to see where that could go, and how the sky is the limit for all of these things, that the sky is the limit for what Bill and Claire's can do. Claire and I spent the last year doing a year of groundwork, and I think that, man, she's 10, and every day she's teaching me stuff about the movies that she sees. Being able to spend time with her and be reminded that, like, dude, kids are smart and they know what's up. And they really will put their finger on some sharp pieces of commentary that goes through that. And like watching her discover a love for that and recognizing that is just the baseline.
And
hashtag Team Claire.
Yeah.
Right? So like when I was Claire's age, the idea of doing what we're doing today, like I wish when I was 21, I knew I could fake my way into a room with Takashi Miike.
No, exactly. I know exactly how you feel.
Well, that would have been good knowledge.
When we went to the AFI Silver and sat with Don Coscarelli while
we literally faked our way into that AFI Silver. Suddenly we were upstairs. I was like, they let us in.
Yeah, but just the idea that that's just the thing that you can do if you really want to. And I think that, like, for me, I recognize that I've not been a part of ITMOD as a contributor since day one, but the idea that year 6, to me, my perspective of it is just, man, what could be is so overwhelmingly awesome to me that, like, I don't know. I'm just so excited for everything that can be.
And we can't forget that Chatcast is Billy's baby. That's like his indelible mark on our legacy.
I've contributed to the legacy. Thank you.
ITMOD Chatcast and the Shallow Pocket Project, that is really what got the interview thing going.
Yes.
And that is Billy's baby.
Yeah.
Yes, Billy's beautiful baby.
It's so beautiful. I love it so much.
What I'm looking forward to
Yes.
in the future of ITMOD.
Yep.
More Still Awesomes.
Yeah.
More growing our local community, getting more in touch with the people at Winchester, hopefully the people at Ashburn, growing, like getting more involved with people, with human beings outside of this room. Podcasts are my favorite thing. Doing interviews are my favorite thing. I love doing them. I'm looking forward to being actually comfortable doing them and not being able to do them without feeling like, guys, do you know that I'm not qualified to do this?
Can I just interject something?
Yes.
And it's because you've said the Chatcast is my baby. So then, as an authoritative figure on the Chatcast, you're the goddamn best thing about it.
What?
No joke.
You know
I'm
that
not
shit.
exaggerating.
You know that shit. You consistently kill. Oh my God, I'm so nervous. I'm going to be so bad. And then you always nail it.
It's because her nerves are so intense that she researched the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying if I get comfortable, I'll lose my edge?
Maybe. Yeah, don't get comfortable.
Never be comfortable, Lisa, but you're awesome.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, history shows I've never been comfortable, so
this will work out great for everybody.
So more interviews, more going on the road, and doing more film festivals. All that stuff.
All right, B.
Hosting things. I love hosting
things for sure. Still Awesome. We are in year 2 of our Still Awesome series.
Yeah.
Again, crazy. District 9 is coming up at the end of November. And then Eyes Wide Shut is at the beginning of December.
Could that be a Bill and Claire's episode?
It should be.
Jesus. In 8 years.
Can I? Look, we booked Eyes Wide Shut months ago, and then in comes Brian Loy and the Ashburn Film Club, and then they put their Eyes Wide Shut screening in December. Stop copying. Still Awesome, guys.
Yeah.
So we've got Eyes Wide Shut. They're not official yet, but January is looking like it's going to be Amelie.
A Brian fave.
February, I'm not going to say what it is yet because we can't really even talk about February, but February at the Alamo Winchester is going to be, it's going to be crazy awesome.
Okay.
I'm so excited about February.
Yeah.
And especially the Still Awesome series. I'm hoping that in May we're going to do a Still Awesome screening of the animated Justice League: The New Frontier as a tribute to Darwin Cook, who passed away in May of 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 2.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Super excited about that and all the other ideas that we have for Still Awesome screenings. ITMOD Chatcast film festivals, all of that stuff. I mean, on the ITMOD Chatcast front, like in the bag right now, this Wednesday we are going to have an epic Full Metal Modine, Matthew Modine Chatcast, which will also include conversations with the sweepstakes winners who flew from Dallas.
Ida and Scott.
And Scott.
Relationship goals there.
They were great.
And then Sean Robert, who we met through Wolfman's Got Nards. He came down for a screening of
And the Band
Played On.
He's been a big supporter of Bill and Claire's.
Yes.
Shout out to Sean.
So I said Sean Robert. It's not Sean Robert. It's Sean Decker, right?
Sean Decker.
Sean Decker.
What's Robert's first name then?
Sean
It's
also.
Sean Robert.
Yeah, there's two
Sean,
Seans.
okay, so I
There's
was
two
right.
Seans.
You don't know what you're talking
Sean
about.
Robert is Bill and Claire. Sean Decker is my guy. But they're both Wolfman's Got Nards fans. Anyway, super excited to get that episode out. But we have episodes coming out with Chinese filmmaker Sung Sung Teng. Her film Send Me to the Clouds. We have interviews coming out with Tim Robbins and Jack Henry Robbins.
That's not out yet. Oh my God.
I'm saying it's coming out. Yeah. Lisa, we have interviews coming out with Justin Long.
He's so dreamy, you guys.
We have interviews coming out with Martin Cove, William Stadler, Stephen Lang, and Joe Begos for VFW. We have an interview coming out with Richard Stanley for Color Out of Space. We have an interview coming out with Leonard Maltin and Jesse Maltin. I mean, we've got a lot coming out on the ITMOD Chatcast channel. So if you are not subscribed to that, it is a separate channel. It's not coming into this feed.
Yeah.
Jump on over to ITMOD Chatcast and listen to some really weird and wonderful conversations.
And we also have our website up as well, inthemouthofdorkness.com, where it's a one-stop shop for everything. So you can get to all the podcast feeds through the .com as well.
Yep, and I'm still working on getting more articles out. You know, it's time consuming. I want to get reviews. Billy and I were like, "Who's doing the It Chapter 2 review?" Turns out nobody.
Oh, all right.
Because it's hard to get together on some of this stuff. But we're gonna do it. It'll happen. So yeah, I'm excited about all of that.
I'm excited about what Brian was talking about, the video component, the YouTube component of ITMOD, because I feel like the potential for us and widening our audience, and just not only widening our audience and our reach, but just new experiences for us and what could spin out of that, and just the literal experience of doing these videos and how we grow from that, and in our interactions with one another based on that. But more importantly, I'm more excited about the unknown, because if you'd have asked me the end of last year, would I have suspected that everything that has happened to us would be happening within the span of these next 11 months? Like, if I wouldn't have known. There's no way. We're continually surprised by the opportunities presented to us, and then the experiences that are birthed from those opportunities. So to me, it's like being excited about, like, what's your next favorite song going to be? What's your next favorite movie going to be, right?
That's an extraordinary metaphor.
Right? So you always think, okay, this song is my favorite song, but you never know that, you're never guessing that this next song, whatever ends up being your next favorite song, is coming, but it comes, and then it's your everything. And so for me, that's what ITMOD has been like year to year. Like that first year driving up for Lost Weekend 3, I would have not known that we were going to be at a Lost Weekend where there are 30 plus films, and we're going to be 43 films, and we're doing interviews with people there, or not knowing at the beginning when we're just huddled around that mic that we would have Indie Dork, and then we would have guests on the show and doing interviews and then doing spin-off podcasts. Like, there's no way I could have imagined that. So
we're still surprised people are listening.
Right. And so, my first trek up to Alamo Winchester, I never would have guessed that we have this plaque that says we're the official podcast of that Alamo Draft House. So the mind boggles at the potential for this podcast, but because of the relationships that we've and the friendships that we've cultivated, and from our experiences, we're continually blessed with these new opportunities and these new experiences. So it's just a huge box with a plethora of surprises inside that I have no idea what I'm going to pull out when I reach into it. And that is super exciting to me. So that's what I'm excited about, just reaching in and pulling out the next ITMOD experience. And what is that going to be?
Yeah, and, speaking of our listeners, who we love greatly, we have a couple comments from our live stream. This one's from our, the Stitch Dork, Shara.
Hey.
She says, so thankful for ITMOD and grateful you guys share your passion and friendship with us. I love getting to interact with you guys on social media and at the Alamo. You guys never make me feel like just a fan / listener. I feel like part of the family, and it means the world to me.
You're not just a fan / listener.
You are part of the family.
You are our actual friend.
You have hung out on this entire live feed. I think the only one who has stayed in this entire live feed for this entire event, and we love you for it.
We are ride or die for Shara.
That's a fact.
And Max.
And then MK.
Ooh, Brian Young just joined.
Oh, Brian Young's watching. Busted. Brian Young's one of our fans too. But MK has also posted. Yay! And also MK is one of our original fans
an actual
as well,
friend.
and a great family member within the ITMOD clan. MK says, hanging out with Brad and Lisa after Star Trek for a few hours when it was only like the third time we'd met is still one of my favorite moments.
Yay.
Still one of my favorite moments also.
Love that. And hanging during Modine weekend. That was recent, but I still look back on it and smile.
Just that Star Trek screening was just so awesome.
Epic.
Just awesome.
Yeah.
Star Trek for life.
Yay.
MK says, I was late because I was editing my own podcast.
Yay!
We don't hold it against you. We know you would be there for the entire podcast if you could have. So yes.
But you live your best life.
Yes.
Edit
Live
your
our
podcast.
best life. And then Emily CD says, congrats, guys.
Thank you.
And she
Emily.
gives us not one exclamation mark, but two exclamation marks.
One of those is mine.
One belongs to Darren.
Emily is
So-
also a brilliant musician and creative and big time fan.
Yeah, and that's what
stuff.
I've loved so much about doing this podcast. And like, I remember the first time we met a fan, it was Jesse.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Jesse. That dude, have you seen Jesse lately?
Yes, he's living his best life, globetrotting.
He's living several best lives, apparently.
But I remember Jesse coming up to us at the Alamo Draft House in Ashburn, and going like, "Hey, Mouth Dork." I'm like, "Whoa, who's this stranger?" And they're like, "What? You listen to us?"
Yeah.
And then speaking about like favorite memories, I remember Darren coming to us like in the second year because Darren had like. Because Darren brands himself. You can't see it, but he's wearing the In the Mouth of Darkness podcast T-shirt.
Yeah.
He's always branded. He had a backpack. Remember you had that backpack?
Oh, and I was in Tyson's, yeah.
And you were at Tyson's Corner, and someone came up to you, and you're like, I listened to that podcast.
That was nuts.
What?
That was nuts.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So interacting with our fans, getting to know our fans, and getting to know our friends, it's like... It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's truly beautiful.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
5 years.
Happy
That doesn't
anniversary,
mean
dorks.
we don't need more fans. So
We do.
you should tell a friend.
Yeah.
Make a friend and then tell them.
Yeah, and rate us on iTunes.
Yeah.
Give us a 5-star
5
review,
stars.
please.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're gonna talk memories, telling Rick Humphreys to go ahead and give me 1 star, and then he gave me 1 star, and now every time I go into iTunes and I see that we don't have a perfect 5-star rating because of that joke with Rick Humphreys. I mean, I love you, Rick.
God damn it, Rick.
But also,
You can't delete that?
I can't
No.
delete it.
Can he delete it?
No,
He can't. Once you.
he effed us, and by he effed us, I effed us by joking about it.
You know, Claire knows that story. And every time we're recording the outro for Bill and Claire's stuff, and she's like, do a 5-star review, she tells that story about how don't jokingly give us a 1-star review because that'll make people think your podcast is bad.
Yeah.
It happened.
It did happen.
His name is Rick.
Life lesson learned.
His name is Rick Humphreys.
Yeah.
He's a talented screenwriter. He's he's written a werewolf movie right now. I can't wait to see that.
I'm going to give it a 1-star review.
But you're damn right. I am giving IMDb. I'm doing half star.
It's getting a splat.
We should not create the cycle of
No, we shouldn't
revenge
do that.
reviews.
No revenge reviews. 5 stars only.
We only celebrate celebration.
But go give 5 stars to Bill and Claire's Excellent Adventures. Give 5 stars to Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast.
ITMOD Chatcast.
ITMOD Chatcast. Go over to our YouTube page. Give the thumbs up icon. Click that a bunch of times. And Darren, you announced it on your Facebook video.
I did.
Last night.
Whoops.
So I think you've got to announce what you're doing as well.
Yeah, speaking to what we were talking about earlier, as far as what you were saying, Brad, as far as being a celebratory in your in your discussions on the podcast about films and comics and everything else, I had been feeling like that myself in regards to social media and where we are in society and our fandom. And all the toxicity in it, and going to what Lisa was saying, the negative connotations with fandom, the word fan. And I, like you, I want to contribute to putting positive energy out into the world. And so, like, I had the idea of just doing my own spinoff podcast, pun intended, Disco's Positive Spin. And like I said in that video yesterday, it will just, it will cover a range of geek and pop culture topics, whether it be a movie, whether it be a comic book, whether it be something that's just in the news of pop culture that is getting slammed negatively, or there's a negative stigma around it, or there's a bunch of hate. I want to take a look at some of these things and put a positive spin on it. Look at the bright side. Look at the positive in some of these things. to kind of just provide balance in the universe, right?
I can't wait for your 2020 election episode.
Oh,
God.
All right.
I'm good.
Why would you bring that up?
We'll see what I can do. But yeah,
Good luck.
I'm looking forward to that, because I want to be a contributor to the positive. And like I say, our mission statement, our unofficial but official mission statement is, the progression and promotion of geek culture. But in that way, we want to do it in a positive and inclusive and respectful manner. So I want to live that with this spinoff podcast. So be on the lookout for that soon. Disco's Positive Spin.
Yes.
Is
All
that
right.
the end? Is that the end?
That's it. That's so sad, but it's so happy.
What happens now?
I don't know.
I think that we are ready to roll into our 6th anniversary. Congratulations, you guys. That was a very long episode.
We're going to record these back to back.
We really spent a long time blowing smoke right up our own patoots.
Oh, is that blowing smoke? I thought that was.
Whoops. Oh.
Well, I've had a good time. I just want to say that.
Oh.
Brad,
wow.
Max is watching maybe.
Wow.
I don't know. All right.
We have a lady present, guys.
That's.
Thank you for that inclusive gesture.
Oh, he's talking about you, not Brian.
I was talking butts.
Oh,
that was my assumption.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening, and thank you all for listening these past 5 years.
Yes.
And I always want to say this, but I'm going to remember to say this. Thank you to the people who not only listen to us in the United States, but the United Kingdom, and people in Australia, the people in Canada, the one person in Mongolia, the listener in Malaysia, the person in Australia, Austria, there was someone somewhere in the Middle East, I forgot. There was a listener in Egypt. There's someone in the Netherlands. There are people, and there are onesie-twosie listeners and downloads in all of these different places around the world, but there is genuinely someone somewhere around the other side of the globe that has heard our incessant ramblings, and I genuinely thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of our hearts, for allowing our dorkness into your lives. And so here's to another 5, 10, 20, 15 years. So,
I like that you went small for the last one. 5, 10, 20, 15.
Yeah, I had to be realistic.
I love the idea of us growing old together and all just living in a house.
We're working towards that.
Like the monkeys, we all know.
We're working
comes
towards
with
that.
3 kids.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they'll
4
move
kids.
out, right?
Well, there'll be.
Are you going with the we're only going to go 15 years?
What's your time span here? What's the time frame? I need to know.
All right.
We're moving in with you tomorrow.
Tight?
Very. All right.
See you soon, Danielle.
That's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening and watching, and enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time.